Okay, so now we're going to explore building our own custom Animate CSS. There's a couple things that I'm going to say to keep in mind as we go through this. The first of all that would help it, especially if you're not familiar too much with CSS animations, is to start from an existing animation and then start tweaking some things here and there. Now you need to rename that animation, so you're going to copy that animation and then you're going to paste it. I don't recommend changing the original animation. I recommend copying it and giving it a different names and then placing that towards the bottom of the code, because if Animate CSS comes out with a new version, you know where to go in and download the new version, and then you can copy your custom code into the new version without touching all of the original code or anything like that. And then once you've renamed your animation, you go in and you modify that animation. You tweak some of the different values, the properties and values, to really affect however you want it to affect, and go in there and create your own custom animation. So let's go in, and we're going to start out in the 02. If you download the demo files, go into the 02 folder, and this is the project we're going to be starting with. And it's basically just left off from what we did before. As soon as one animation starts, then it will trigger another animation, so we're good there. But let's come into the project files, and we're going to go into Animate CSS. I'm going to double click where it says Animate CSS, and I'm going to go through a couple of these different animations. So you'll notice, first of all, we have this WebKit keyframes, and then we have bounce here. So this is the name of the animation. It's going to start out from 20%, 53%, 80%, and then it's going to go to, and then it has some of these more custom animations right there. Now, again, that's a little bit more complex than you probably need to know, but at least knowing that it always has this to and then from, or from and to, allows you to go in and see what it's doing here. And you can see this cubic Bezier curve. This is basically an animation. It has a couple different values that it's passing in order to complete that animation. Now there's other ones that are a little bit less complex, like this bounce one right here. Actually, this flash one is a little bit less complex as well. But you can see the bounce, what we did first of all, or what Animate CSS did, is they went in there and created the animation, and then they created the class that then animates or uses that animation to then animate. So it says WebKit animation name bounce, and goes in and grabs that animation and then comes in here and does it just for animation name. This is basically just taking care of the WebKits and taking care of other browsers as well. So the Flash one is a little bit less complex. It basically just says it's going to start from 50%, go to 1, then 25, then 75, and it starts to kind of flash there. So looking through these different animations, you can see kind of makes sense a little bit more of what's happening here. But this really allows you to go in and even tweak some of the different values here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an animation that says slide in left. And we're going to grab this animation. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to copy the animation, both keyframes here, and also the class there where it says slide in left. And I'm going to come to the very bottom of Animate CSS. And this is where I'm going to add on my notes. I don't want to affect anything above that. I'm going to go ahead and add a note here that says custom Jeff animations. All right. Now I'm going to paste that, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give this a different name. So instead of slide in left, I'm going to say slide in Jeff. Let's just have that there. I'm going to copy that, paste that. You can name it whatever you want in this case. And then I'm going to come down and say the class is going to be slide in left, or slide in Jeff there, and then we're going to pass in these animations that we've done. Now from here, what I'm going to do is instead of a -100, I'm actually going to say, let's just say -70, so it's not going to be completely off the screen when it starts to animate. So I'm going to change that. Everything that says a -100, I'm going to change to -70, come down here, and then also change this one to -70. Now you'll notice that there's pretty much two different things that do the same thing. This is to attack all of the different browsers that are WebKits. This is to attack every other browser there. And so it's just basically handling it in either way. And so you can see here, WebKit animation is going to be called slide in Jeff, and then animation is going to be called slide in Jeff as well. So instead of it being completely off the screen and then sliding in, it's going to start at 70%, -70, and then slide in from there. I'm going to hit save, but I'm going to copy this class, and I'm going to come into my index.html file. And so we're going to actually go into the JavaScript, because in this example, we're adding the class when that button is clicked. So instead of bounce, I'm going to come in here and just paste where it says slide in Jeff. And it's just going to then animate, as soon as the animation is done, it's going to then animate the next object. That's okay. I'm just more worried about this actually animating in. And so let's go ahead, actually come into remove Annie1. And we're going to, instead of bounce, remove slide in Jeff, just to make sure that we basically have those two different. Well, I don't need it on the second one because I'm only applying it to section 1. I just basically want to make sure that it's removed from after it's done animating there. All right, so let's go into our browser. Let's go ahead and hit refresh there. And then I'm going to click on Animate Section 1. And you'll notice it does not completely start off the screen. That's because I started it at -70 instead of -100. You may not want exactly that, but that's just showing you how you could go in and how you could customize. If you're more familiar with how to do CSS animations, you could actually go in there and do some pretty complex stuff. Or you can go in and say, okay, that's not exactly what I wanted, that bounce. I want to go in and modify it a little bit, maybe add some opacity or anything like that. So if you really want to learn about being able to do CSS animations, I definitely recommend either check out W3 Schools or go into the Pluralsight course, Mastering CSS Animations. So in the next video, we're basically going to wrap up this section and go into our demo project and apply a custom class to our demo project.